Is President Trump on defense over the plunging and volatile economy? The companies are down, all of them in the market, since the Trump tariff war began.
Walmart CFO John David Rainey told me that they just can't absorb all the price increases to absorb some of those higher tariff costs.
President Trump, a short time ago, telling Walmart that the company should, I'm quoting now, eat the cost.
Walmart, the retail giant, is facing a crisis that goes far beyond just rising prices. The challenges stemming from recent U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports have exposed a deeper vulnerability in the American economy, one that's rippling through supply chains, squeezing consumer budgets, and shaking up the entire retail landscape. As U.S. retailers like Walmart struggle to respond, Canadian businesses are stepping in, ready to capture market share and reshape the dynamics of North American retail. This shift, rooted in changing trade policies and economic adjustments, illustrates both the immediate strain on American consumers and the growing strategic opportunities for players north of the border. In early 2025, the Trump administration imposed tariffs as high as 125% on select Chinese goods, later reduced to 30% under a temporary truce. For Walmart, which sources about a third of its products from overseas, with 60% of that from China, the impact was swift and harsh. Products across the board, electronics, clothing, toys, even everyday groceries like bananas, coffee, avocados, and flowers, saw sudden price hikes. Walmart's CFO, John David Rainey, didn't mince words in a CNBC interview, calling the tariffs inflationary for customers. In other words, prices are rising, and quickly. By May 2025, the effects were unmistakable. Toy prices surged. Research found that a Barbie doll with a swimsuit at Target jumped by 42.9% in mid-April. Electronics weren't spared, and basic groceries also saw notable increases. CEO Doug McMillon highlighted categories like produce and household goods as especially vulnerable to rising costs. Finance Monthly estimated the average American household would need an extra $4,900 per year just to maintain their current standard of living, a major hit for already strained families. In an attempt to contain the damage, Walmart asked some Chinese suppliers to cut prices by up to 10%. That move backfired. Chinese authorities deemed the request unfair, and talk stalled. Walmart now finds itself caught between escalating costs and an inability to fully pass them on, or absorb them. The company even urged the Trump administration to reconsider the tariffs, warning in a letter to U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer that the policy would hurt not only Walmart and its suppliers, but also American consumers and the broader economy. Despite the administration's reassurances that businesses could withstand the tariffs, Rainey alluded to difficult strategic decisions ahead: fewer product options, potential store closures, and workforce reductions. Other major retailers like Target and Dollar Tree are also raising prices, resulting in emptier shelves and increased frustration for consumers who now pay more for basic items. The tariffs, intended to pressure China, have instead delivered a direct blow to American shoppers. Walmart's deeply China-dependent supply chain can't be overhauled overnight. Shifting to countries like Vietnam or India is a multi-year process, involving the creation of new supplier networks and logistics routes. In the meantime, prices keep climbing, and inventory shortages are becoming the norm. Retail analysts say American stores are scrambling to cope, but the larger economic message is clear. U.S. consumers are bearing the brunt of the trade war fallout. The goal of these tariffs was to promote domestic manufacturing and lessen dependency on Chinese goods. But the short-term consequences, higher prices, thinner inventories, and stressed supply chains, have revealed just how fragile the American retail system is when confronted with global trade disruptions. As U.S. retailers struggle, the resulting gaps are creating opportunities for more agile competitors, especially in Canada. While American businesses are bogged down by the crisis, Canadian retailers are quietly capitalizing on the moment. Frustrated by higher prices and frequent shortages at home, a growing number of U.S. shoppers are turning to Canadian stores. Retailers like Loblaws and Canadian Tire are seeing a rise in interest from American customers, who are asking about price differences, shipping options, and how to shop across the border. This trend points to a potential long-term shift in consumer habits as people look for relief outside the US market. Amazon Canada, in particular, has been aggressive in seizing this opportunity. The company expanded its fulfillment infrastructure near the US border to better serve American customers tired of delays and markups. With access to many of the same products, often at lower prices, Amazon Canada is offering faster delivery to northern US states. Internal data shows a notable rise in US orders since the tariffs were enacted, highlighting the growing appeal of cross-border shopping. Chatter Research has identified 3 core strategies Canadian retailers are using to make the most of this moment. First, they're securing deals with European manufacturers to avoid US supply chain disruptions. For instance, Canadian Tire shifted 18% of its orders from US suppliers to European ones nearly overnight, helping maintain stable pricing and inventory. Second, retailers are expanding private label offerings, allowing them to control prices and ensure consistent stock when branded imports are affected by tariffs. Third, they're investing in loyalty programs to attract and keep customers. Loblaws, for example, has seen a surge in loyalty signups in border towns as value-conscious shoppers try to stretch their dollars. The Canadian government is actively supporting this shift. The Carney administration has accelerated trade negotiations with the European Union and Mexico to diversify supply chains and reduce dependency on the US programs, like the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan Facility, launched in March 2025, are providing financial aid to big retailers adjusting their supply chains, helping preserve jobs in Canada. Meanwhile, a temporary remission framework is giving businesses reliant on US goods some breathing room to adapt. Canadian Tire stores near the border are already reporting a spike in foot traffic, especially for items hit hardest by US tariffs, such as tools, sporting goods, and auto parts. Retailers are prioritizing inventory and offering prices that undercut their American counterparts, drawing in shoppers from both sides of the border. Analysts believe this is more than a passing trend. If US prices remain high, habits like cross-border shopping and online ordering from Canadian sources could become permanent. The Canadian government is also working to lure US distribution centers northward, taking advantage of the instability American retailers are facing. Early trade talks with the EU and Mexico are part of a larger effort to rewire supply chains, while a temporary suspension of counter-tariffs on US imports offers 6 months of relief for Canadian businesses still dependent on American inputs. These efforts are aimed at transforming Canada from a short-term beneficiary into a long-term retail hub. Still, Canada faces real challenges. Experts warn that the country's infrastructure, its ports, highways, and warehouses, may not be ready for a major influx of goods and business activity. While expansions like those at the Port of Montreal are underway, they will take time. Labor shortages and logistical bottlenecks could also prevent Canada from fully capitalizing on the opportunity. Retail job growth in Canada is strong, particularly in logistics and supply chain roles, but the system's overall capacity to handle such rapid change remains uncertain. Retailers are proceeding cautiously, balancing transparency and pricing with the need to optimize their operations and stock goods that Americans now struggle to find, such as power tools, auto parts, and certain food items. These aren't just short-term plays. They're moves aimed at reshaping consumer behavior for the long haul. The pressure on North American retail is intensifying, and the traditional balance is shifting. Tariffs have turned supply chains into strategic battlegrounds, and Canada's agile response, through government support and private sector innovation, has positioned it to make significant gains. But the advantage is far from guaranteed. For Canada to secure its role as a dominant player in North American retail, it must invest decisively in infrastructure and global trade alliances. The stakes are high. This isn't just about quarterly profits. It's about who controls the future of supply chains, what ends up on store shelves, and at what price. For now, Canadian retailers are moving swiftly, exploiting US vulnerabilities and building momentum. Whether this leads to a lasting transformation in North American retail will depend on Canada's ability to act with speed and purpose. The new front line of the retail economy is clear. Supply chains, shifting consumer habits, and the race to adapt will define the region's retail future. Subscribe to Torch Point for more news and updates. Thanks for the support. See you again.